Chapter 22. The morning came too soon, yet neither Anna nor Daniel could sleep past 9, both wide awake with the enthusiasm of following the tracker. They sat together on the sofa, fixated on the living room vid screen currently displaying the tracking map. The intent had been to leave it up in the background while they worked on other things, but that hadn't panned out. When 9 o'clock came and went with nothing happening, a portion of Anna's anticipation ebbed, and she began looking for a way to distract herself. Connecting to the net, she initiated a query for Suzanne Lewis. Daniel noticed and raised an eyebrow. "Searching for something?" "Just killing time and starting to think about the stolen MMDs. They've been off my radar for a week, but before the bombing happened, that case was my highest priority. Now that we have an ID on the buyer and seller, I'm curious." He stood up and stretched, then touched his jaw, a frequent gesture since his encounter with Gary Robertson. "Well, tell me if you find anything. I'm going to head back to the bedroom and try to focus on building that defensive mod. I've proven the routines I found are for manipulating Lazarus particles, but I still have a lot to untangle, and it isn't easy working with decompiled code." She hadn't heard everything he'd said as she scrolled through a list of people named Suzanne Lewis who lived in Houston. If Simon were around to help, it would take far less time. She didn't know what to look for. The listing on her data lens contained dozens of public profiles along with basic details: employers, associations, education history. She spent a few minutes scrolling through them until an entry caught her eye. A Suzanne Lewis who worked for A Better Way. In the profile pic, Suzanne wore a professional suit with long straightened hair flowing behind her. Her listed age was 27, young for the CFO it reported her to be. She'd been with A Better Way since its inception 3 years ago, and before that had been in middle management at an investment firm. "Daniel, come check this out!" She raised her voice so he could hear her in the bedroom. "Be right there." When he reappeared, she sent him Suzanne's info when he stopped to study it. "A Better Way? She works for them?" "Yes, I hadn't expected A Better Way to show up again, but it feels like a connection. Why would Radon be selling them tracked MMDs?" "I don't know. Maybe—" She could tell by the face he made that he had a hunch, but one not yet fully formed. Then his expression changed, and he pointed over her shoulder, redirecting her attention. "Anna, look." She turned, spared further speculation about A Better Way and the stolen tablets by the moving dot on the vid screen, the shipment now in transit 45 minutes after its scheduled departure. She drew in a sharp breath. "Okay, let's hope this goes someplace interesting." They watched as the tiny indicator picked up speed and headed northwest in the direction of central Texas. This wasn't unexpected. They had both surmised the assembly plant would be located somewhere outside the city. She was still watching the screen when a chirp from her data lens notified her Jada was calling. She answered quickly. "Jada!" "Anna, I got your message last night. This is a secure line. We can talk freely." "Understood. Daniel and I have a lot to report." "I assumed as much. I'm shocked you found the stolen MMDs, and even more so that they had trackers. Are you sure they're the same units?" "I'm sure. You saw the location history. They followed the path I identified from the satellite imagery, and now we have the name of the buyer, Suzanne Lewis. She works for A Better Way." There was a slight pause on the call. "I believe you, but how does this fit in with Gary Robertson?" "We aren't certain, only that the common denominator is radon security. But more importantly, we discovered evidence they're working with someone who's manufacturing MMDs." Jada's response was quick and alarmed. "What?" Anna described the strange MMDs without Finney logos, for the moment leaving out their suspicions about Redmond. She also told her about the materials for creating MMDs and ended by explaining their plan to track the shipment to what they thought would be an assembly plant. After she finished, Jada remained silent for several seconds. "I think I need to come to you. We have a lot to talk about, and I think we should do it in person." "I agree." As they waited for her, Anna and Daniel studied the dot as it crawled across the screen. After a few minutes, Daniel excused himself to go back to his mod development. He hadn't been gone long when it stopped moving, ending at a location 50 or so miles beyond the city limits. Anna input the coordinates and pulled up historic satellite imagery, but as far as she could tell, nothing existed there save for an ugly patch of empty ground. No food, no structures, nothing at all. The record she found showed AmeriProduce owned the land, an agricultural company who controlled much of the non-urban South. She was still trying to make sense of the data when the door chime announced Jada's arrival. Anna rose to her feet to disassemble the door and greet her. Jada stepped in and anxiously surveyed the room. "Where's Daniel?" Anna thumbed over her shoulder. "Working on his mod. It's slow going." Jada took a seat. "I imagine. Maybe we can find a way to speed that up." Anna didn't know what this meant, but chose not to ask. She indicated the vid screen. "We have a location now." Jada followed her gaze. "What have you found out?" "You see what I see. The land at the coordinates is owned by an agricultural corporation, only according to the satellite imagery, nothing's there. No crops, no assembly plant." Jada rested her elbow on the arm of her chair, then lifted her hand up to her chin. If I had to guess, I'd say this is an old satellite capture. That land isn't empty if radon is sending materials to it." Anna didn't understand. "The images should be up to date at least within the last month." "They should, but they aren't always. This is likely a military installation. The U.S. doesn't allow satellites to display current information for anything considered useful to enemies of the state, which means locations of military bases and outposts show archived or altered images." Anna nodded slowly as the pieces fell into place. "If it's military, that fits with my theory." "Your theory?" "That this is Redmond's project." Jada appraised her, eyes twinkling. "Oh my, you're looking high up the chain." "Only a person high up the chain has the power to do all this. You said yourself you don't think Guerrero is behind it, but someone rushed to take down a better way, and Redmond checks all the boxes. She has the authority to initiate a secret government project. She can make arrests." She held up a finger for emphasis. "And she wants specialized combat MMDs." "Agent Flynn, I'm impressed. You've been learning your politics." Anna wagged the finger. "Not me. Shaw gave us a crash course at dinner. She smelled blood in the water, but like you, I didn't think Redmond would take her public feud to the level of assassination. But if she's doing clandestine research on manipulating Lazarus particles, that changes things, especially if they had a breakthrough." Jada peered at her with understanding. "A breakthrough like splitting a sheep into pieces?" "Exactly like that. And I don't think the lab in the vid belonged to Feeney. It was Project Libertas. They gave it to Ben to scare him into action against Feeney and Shaw, but hadn't meant for it to fall into our hands. Ben leaving his personal tablet behind in the hotel room messed up their plans." Jada's head bobbed slowly. "And that's why Zhao broke into the data center to remove it. They didn't want our data techs to have a chance to study it. If they had, they'd have realized the recording had been doctored to look like it came from Feeney." "That's what I suspect. But back to Shaw. After Project Libertas proved they could kill an animal with their tech, Redmond knew she had to start normalizing the idea of the military having MMDs without failsafes, promise to only use them on foreign soil, scare people into believing they're necessary, all the typical ways people justify atrocities." "You're very knowledgeable about this." "I'm married to a history teacher, but Redmond can't do any of that as long as Shaw is there to constantly oppose her. And if anyone found out about Project Libertas before she achieved public acceptance, it would be a total disaster for her." "Absolutely. Shaw would whip people into a frenzy overnight. The military wielding MMDs capable of tearing apart a living thing is terrifying, and Strickland has studied history well enough to understand that a scared population is a recipe for a coup. She'd put Redmond on the chopping block to assuage people's fears. The initiative would die, and Redmond would be disgraced, maybe even imprisoned. Anna's irritation rose. If you're going to overreach, you have to do it gradually and subtly. As I said, you're learning. Project Libertas needed to take out Shaw, but they didn't want to do it themselves. They found someone they could turn into a true believer who had a built-in scapegoat. Who better than a better way? They act like a cult and are anti-government. Oh, and Zhao and Monk served together before he got the ball rolling, so there's history between them. Jada picked up the thread. Project Libertas enlisted Radon Security, who sent Robertson to work on Jacobs. They must have identified Jacobs as a prime candidate to take out Shaw without having any trail back to them. Footfalls echoed behind Anna, and she turned to see Daniel enter the room, once again nursing his jaw. I need a break. You brought Jada up to speed? Come join us. Anna patted the cushion beside her on the couch. We've been running through our theory about Strickland and her hidden lab. Jada says the assembly plant is most likely a military installation. He took this in with a nod. That makes sense. The military is building weapons for themselves. He hesitated, then changed the subject. So I've been mulling this over, and I think if Redmond is really involved, that explains another mystery. Anna studied him, interested. Which is? How the exploit got into your service weapons. All programming for domestic government weapons comes from Redmond's people, and that includes both your agency and Shaw's security. She could have had her people plant the vulnerability so Ben could get through. He wouldn't have stood a chance under normal conditions. Jada leaned back into her chair. Putting that on Redmond is a good thought. It's been hard for me to believe anyone in our office would betray us that way. Anna agreed. Same. I think Daniel's right. They were planning to take out Shaw, so set up the vulnerability ahead of time. Shaw's security must have been the main target for that hack, and we were just a bonus. They had no reason to believe we'd ever get involved. When Daniel didn't speak further, she sensed he had something else on his mind. She reached over and touched his leg. What is it? He sighed. You'll have to tell me if I'm seeing things that aren't there, but ever since we found out those stolen tablets were intended for a better way, I've been wondering if they were part of the frame. She frowned. How so? If Project Libertas had always planned to plant evidence and arrest a Better Way's leadership, they were probably worried about catching them all. The news is reporting Monk hasn't been caught yet. Jada nodded. That's true. No one knows where he is. Anna does. She shot Daniel a confused look. I do? Then she understood. The commune. Jada's forehead creased. Commune? Yeah, it's one of the things I found out in El Paso. A Better Way has access to some land, but keeps it well hidden, apparently in case the government ever turns hostile toward them. Jada gave a dark laugh. Can't blame them for that, can we? I suppose not. Anna glanced at Daniel. But yes, I'm certain that's where Monk is. He leaned forward, adopting the posture she knew meant he was delivering a winning stroke. And Project Libertas doesn't have the coordinates, but they would if they had a tracker on him, or on a tablet he had in his possession. That's when the light bulb went on, and Anna understood. They wanted to sell a Better Way the tablets with trackers so they'd be able to find any of the leaders who went to secret locations. Right. Anyone going off-grid is going to want a region-unlocked MMD, or they'll end up living in the Stone Age. And thanks to Radon, those tablets would lead Project Libertas directly to Monk. We did him a favor when we broke up the sale. Too bad for him, I still have the coordinates. Jada flipped up her palms, indicating the pointlessness of this. Except he hasn't done anything illegal at this point. That's true. Anna sank back into the couch, finding the weight of following so many threads exhausting. But at least it's all coming together. Redmond, A Better Way, Project Libertas. I'm not sure what we can do about any of it, though. Jada gestured to the dot on the screen. The prototype they killed the sheep with proves everything. We need to get it and document that it came from Project Libertas, not Feeney. That will clear Shaw of wrongdoing, and by extension, you. No need for Shaw to order you to delete a vid if Feeney wasn't behind the prototype. Anna wished it were so simple. I'm still guilty of giving Daniel the sword, running unauthorized mods, and attacking Carrie and Lucas. I can handle all that. If Redmond goes down, Guerrero's power goes with her. Daniel crossed his arms dubiously. This is easier said than done. It's one thing to break into a civilian warehouse. It's another thing entirely if this place is military-controlled. I did say we. Jada's eyes looked between them, landing on Daniel. You two don't have to be involved except for finishing up that mod. Surprised, Anna cut her eyes at Jada. What? Why wouldn't Daniel and I be there? We're the ones who found this. You just argued that this is how we clear our names. I did. But we can do this publicly. No need for sneaking around. This whole situation is squarely in the agency's mandate. We have the responsibility to shut down an illegal MMD assembly plant, whether it's a criminal ring or the U.S. military. They are not above the law, and in this case, we are the law. So I'll apply for a warrant and bring several agents to serve it. We have the legal authority, and if Daniel can neutralize their non-fail-safe advantage, we will have the means to enforce it. Anna moved over close to Daniel and put her arm around him. That's great, but we'll be with you when this goes down. I want to make sure we get the prototype. Jada sighed, but Anna sensed she was ready to yield. Guerrero won't miss this bust. She doesn't have to know we're there. While you serve the warrant, Daniel and I will go in using a concealment mod and secure the prototype before any Project Libertas folks try to dispose of it. No one will see us. Jada's eyes widened in surprise. A concealment mod? She turned to Daniel. You can code that? I can. It drains energy quickly, but we won't need to keep it up long. Neither Guerrero nor anyone else will see us. She laughed lightly. I admit, I'm impressed. Fine. It's unnecessary, but I don't think I can stop you. Daniel leveled his eyes at her. You can't. I agree with Anna. We should be there. Jada returned his gaze, her gaiety fading. You just get that mod done. But about that, do you think having access to Simon would help you finish it faster? He brightened. Definitely. Not only faster, but with a lot more confidence, too. It's not like I'm going to have a chance to test it out. I'll make it happen then. They continued to talk and plan, and Anna felt something new rise inside of her. Hope? No, more than that. Hope waited. This was active. They were going to fight. The idea of pushing back against these people who had been ahead of her for so long galvanized her spirit. She, Daniel, Jada, and the agency could take Project Libertas down, and for the first time they knew the face of their enemy. Looking at Daniel, she saw her own feelings reflected back. His eyes were resolute, strong, ready to go to war. She smiled. Let's do it.